Alright, so the goal here is to recreate French chateau or castle and make it in tinkercad. It's totally possible, but I want to give you a few tips and tricks before you get started. And this works for any structure. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we'll create a new design. And my what I always suggest is to rename the file right off the bat. So we're going to call this French Chateau 1. Okay. Now, I've gone ahead and I've looked up some French chateaus, and I think this looks like a good one. It doesn't really matter what one we're choosing, although it's kind of blurry, but it doesn't matter. So the thing that I want to point out is that if we were just to go about trying to make this, we might get overwhelmed with how detailed and complex this whole building is. But if we break it down into some more simple shapes, it becomes a lot more feasible. So as I'm using my arrow to kind of highlight things here, I just want to point out a few places where I would begin. So first of all, this is more or less a huge rectangle here. So we're going to start with that and then base some of these columns and turrets off of that. And then we can go in and start to add detail, etc. So let's start there. We're going to create a big block, and we're going to raise it up. And right now we're just eyeballing it, but I like to also orient the object to the image I'm working off of. Definitely have an image in mind as you're building these things out. So if we were to look at this picture, that's pretty close. There it is. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Now, so this is our basis for what we're trying to create, and now what we'll do is we will try and create some of these little turrets. And at first you might be thinking, oh, well, what shape is that? And really you're going to be looking at more or less just a few different types of shapes. The cylinder is probably going to be pretty common in a lot of your buildings. The rectangles and things like that. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of raising and lowering and making this match what I'm looking at here. And you can see that this comes up a little bit beyond that rectangular square. And then we'll put in these roofs later on. But for now, this we know comes up about to there. Okay, so there's that. And if we wanted, what we could do is we could turn this, duplicate it, and then move it over in line. I'm just using my arrow key and get it to about the same spot as that one. And that looks pretty good. Now, what we would do is we would duplicate both of these and move them over. And we just want to make sure that they're kind of in line with those other ones, and that's right about where they should be. Okay, so there's that. And then if we come back, we have these other turret type columns, so put them in. They look even skinnier. And we'll raise that up. And put this down, duplicate that, move this one over. Okay. Now, I'm not aligning these yet. But if you wanted to get more specific, you would. You would use the align tool. And or base everything off of the measurements here. So we know that this is 155, and if we wanted this about a third of the way in, we would divide that by roughly 50. So we would come off of here about 50 to make sure that it would fit in the right spot. But right now I'm just trying to get this situated. So now, what do we have here? We have this little centerpiece. So we'll put a centerpiece in. Now, I don't know if theirs comes out, but I do know that this and this, they are definitely directly in the middle. So we'll align that center. And so far everything's looking pretty well centered and all that. And this should come up a little bit. This should be a little taller than the other piece. And I'm still just basing everything off of this picture. And it'll come together pretty quickly. And what I'm noticing is this one's actually a little bigger. This is going to come together very quick once I start adding windows and things like that. And so let's focus on the roof now. I think we could add. Well, let's just look first. These actually. So right there, that's a specific, just flat roof. So let's go back here. Sometimes what I'll do for rotation is actually just type in the number because I know that the number's right. And then move. And then we're going to stretch that out. Okay. There we go. So this comes into there, which means these two are mighty far apart. So we're going to move this off. We're going to move this off. There. And now, let's move them back in. Here we go. And this is going to go across the whole thing. Move this over here. Stretch it all the way across. And move to the back. There we go. Okay. Make sure it's on there. Make it a little taller. Okay. And then there's a, on the sides here, these are more pyramidal shapes. Bring that up. Extend that out. Extend that out. Bring that up. And actually, this kind of goes into that. You'll see. And now, we just move this one over. And as you start doing this, you're going to start to see the shape take place. Lower that down into the building. There we go. Lower this one down into the building. F brings you in so you can really focus in on what you're working on. That looks good. That looks good. Okay. Notice I have not grouped anything yet because we're not ready to group. And then it looks like there are cones on the top of each of these, so we'll move these up. And it may have been a good idea to actually make one of these first, and then just use it, because what we're going to do here is align, and we're going to stretch that out. And if we were to take these instead of these, then they're already done and we don't have to do it, you know, a whole bunch of times. So we'll delete these. Move that one over. And now I'm just going very quickly, but but you could certainly take more time on some of these. So now we're coming around, bringing this down. Notice that I'm really moving my camera around a lot so that I can make sure that I'm getting everything where it needs to be. A line there, a line there. Now we gotta just move this thing up. And pop it right on top. Like that, like that. Alright, so there's that. Now, windows. And once we put the windows in, I think this is all going to just kind of come together. And oh, you know what? There's a peak on this. So that's just one of these. Line up. Move it back. And I think it's a little taller. There we go. Okay. So for Windows, what we can do is make one pretty good, and then just duplicate it multiple times. So what we'll do is we'll take this, move it up, duplicate that, move that over a tiny bit, and then duplicate that. Ooh, undo. It's duplicating my movements too. So we're going to align. Actually, they are aligned. So we're going to just take this and this, duplicate, and move it up. And I think these are a little taller. Okay. So now we have this nice frame, and then what we can do is make window frame. And I'm taking my time on this part just because if we do it right once, then we can just take the whole thing and do it over and over and over. Okay, so now we duplicate that, move that up, duplicate that, that's going to be up here, 90. Duplicate. Now we'll take all of this. Well, we'll align these two. Okay. And now we will take these, this, and this, and align this to the right, which it already is. So now we'll group that. And now we'll take this, and align this to the left, which it already is. So that's good. So now we'll group all that. And now we will get this in the middle of these. Now if I was just to align this, it's going to put everything together, which we don't want. So we're going to do that. There we go. Now, we're going to take all of this and duplicate. And duplicate. We're going to zoom in here, and we're going to try and select all of this stuff. 1, 2, 3. I'm holding down Shift as I click through these windows. Okay. Now we can duplicate that. Move that up. We can duplicate that. Bring this one over. Okay. Duplicate that, bring it down. Okay. And then once everything's kind of in alignment, you can go ahead and group everything together. And for some reason, some of my windows didn't work out, but for the most part they did. And that was only, I don't know how long I've been recording. That was less than 20 minutes. Now obviously I didn't do all this, but that's the basic idea, is use the duplication feature as much as possible to get your castle into these, and all these designs into your thing there. Once you're ready, then you're going to export as an OBJ. That's important for this project. And then we'll go from there. I hope that was helpful. Main tip is to just break things down into smaller shapes. All right. Good luck.